where the line between success and failure can be measured in fractions of a point. Three gentlemen, nay, heroes, have put aside their differences to combine forces and produce the greatest fantasy football draft kit of all time. Many said that it couldn't be done. Many said it shouldn't be done. But the desire to be the best, the passion to rise above the rest, has pointed these podcasters on a one-way path to fulfill their destiny. This summer, from the creative minds behind the fantasy footballers, comes a blockbuster multimedia extravaganza, the likes of which has never been seen. Video profiles, stat projections, tier breakdowns, printable cheat sheets, rookie rankings, sleepers, busts, and so much more. Mike Wright calls it the one draft tool you can't miss. Andrew Holloway says it's changed his life. And Jason Moore said, when I saw all the content in the Ultimate Draft Kit, I fell to my knees and wept. I wept like a baby. Don't miss this opportunity. Go to www.ultimatedraftkit.com today and secure your copy today.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from Draft.com Studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
That was very rude. Welcome in. Well, we don't have the kind of budget to redo the intro when Jason's not here. So I tried to drown his name out with a bear growl.
Interrupting Bear says, roar.
It is not Andy, Mike, and Jason. Just Andy and Mike. And, well, Jay Grizz is here making his presence known. Jason is, well, he's out sick. He's out sick. I don't know if it was word of the Brandin Cooks trade. I don't know what it was. Maybe just thinking about his future facing me in our dynasty league.
Oh,
I would skip if I were him. But Mike and I, we're holding it down today.
100%.
Should be easy.
You know what? I'll give you 150%.
Okay.
And if you give 150%, then we're back to 300.
Sounds like a plan.
Let's
do it.
We'll give Brooks his regular 2%.
Yeah. And then Jason, he would have been, he's only normally about 10 or 15%.
That's fair.
Welcome into the early top 10 wide receiver episode of the podcast. If you missed last week's episodes, then you would have missed the running backs. The running backs. Today's Tuesday, April 10th, and I'm excited to talk wide receivers, talk about some of these big names, see where Mike and I differ, and it's going to be a lot of fun today.
I think we're going to differ on this quick question. It's very exciting.
Well, I'm gonna do a small social media introduction first, Mike.
Fine.
I want to introduce the people to Twitter at the FF Ballers. Okay. To the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, to Patreon, our community of listeners, supporters, jointhefoot.com. And then we're also on Instagram, instagram.com/fantasyfootballers. I know our name.
Oh, you almost got it.
Instagram.com/fantasyfootballers. And we're on Facebook as well, YouTube, Fantasy Sports Network, and right here in your ears. Now, Jay Grizz he decided it was important to let you know that we are recording this show a couple of days early. Brooks is heading out of town, so if there's big news that breaks, we'll definitely cover it on the upcoming episodes. But, yeah, today's all about rankings. So here's the quick question. We haven't talked about it on the show yet, so we're talking about it right now. The Rams acquired Brandin Cooks last week. All right, acquired Brandin Cooks in a 4th-round pick from the Patriots in exchange for 1st and 6th-round picks. So the Patriots, they played rent a Cooks. They rented a Cooks.
Unbelievable.
For a year. And then, look, for the Patriots, they had to decide, were they willing to pay him?
It's not the Patriot way.
And no. So they said no. And maybe they wanted to see if they'd catch lightning in a bottle with him last year and you'd get this amazing rapport between Tom Brady and Brandin Cooks. But it hasn't happened to the degree that they were willing to pay him. And they ship him off to the Rams, who had been rumored in the Odell Beckham Jr. sweepstakes. Right. And now the Rams, instead of trotting out Sammy Watkins, good friend. Instead, they're trotting out Brandin Cooks.
More than friends, Andy and Sammy.
Just friends. And
with Benny's.
Friends, Mike, keep it under control or I'll stick the bear on you. All right, Brandin Cooks is now a Ram. Look at this. Let's talk about this from all angles. Let's talk about it from the Patriots, what they lose. Let's talk about it from the Rams side. Talks to them guaranteeing a contract extension coming for Brandin Cooks to invest a first round and a 6th round pick. What's the headline, though? Well, like, if you had to just say one thing about this trade, what's the thing that stands out to you the most?
Stop helping the Patriots. That's number one. I know that's not a fantasy take, but the New England Patriots rented a seasoned veteran wide receiver who, in my opinion, Brandin Cooks isn't the best wide receiver, but he's great at what he does. He's very fast. His hands are pretty sure. But they got him for about $1.5 million for last year instead of taking a flyer on a wide receiver at the end of the first last year. And now they get a higher first-round pick.
They have 2 first-rounders.
In return, well, I'm saying they traded very, very back of the draft pick because they were coming off a Super Bowl victory. They traded pick 32, and I believe it's
23.
23.
Yeah.
And they got his services for a full year.
Yeah, it's very smart. Very smart. I will say this. No matter what the Patriots do, though, I feel like the response is going to be, you're helping the Patriots.
Maybe. This in particular.
Because it's not every day that trading away a very talented wide receiver is considered a good thing. Well, Tom Brady has how many years left? You've taken away a huge weapon. That's part of the equation here. Do they believe that Edelman's return just completely eliminates the need for Cooks? Is Malcolm Mitchell's return important? Do they really believe in Kenny Britt? That's the headline for me.
Oh, you're skipping the name that I want to talk about too.
Which is who?
That's
Chris Hogan?
That's Philip Dorsett.
Yeah.
And you can check out playerprofiler.com. The comp for Philip Dorsett coming out of college was literally Brandin Cooks.
Right.
They are almost an identical player when you're talking size and athleticism.
Production, on the other hand?
Of course. But Philip Dorsett is a sub 4.4 guy. No one else on that roster has that speed anymore. I like Chris Hogan, but he was already solidified into the role. It's who is going to take over that X receiver. Now, I know that Julian Edelman will be the slot. Julian Edelman will more than likely be the receiver on the field when they go into one wideout sets. But there is a gaping hole at wide receiver. There are many, many snaps and many targets that need to be filled.
And that'll be, to me, sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
To me, you're not going to replace 65 receptions, over 1,000 yards, and 7 touchdowns with Dorsett. I think you're going to do it with a couple players, maybe 2 or 3 players.
Possibly.
Maybe it's Britt and Dorsett. Maybe it's Malcolm Mitchell.
Yeah.
Maybe it's another draft pick that they invest one of these picks on.
It could be. It's just we got to talk about the information we have right now. And to me, it's either Malcolm Mitchell or it's Philip Dorsett. I know they picked Kenny Britt up when he wasn't claimed on the waivers. They gave him a 2-year contract, and they picked up his option for this year. So I believe it's about $1.5 million in a contract, but that's not guaranteed at all. They can get rid of Kenny Britt at any moment. And does Kenny Britt really have anything left? The Patriots have a history of taking wide receivers that people thought were washed. Randy Moss, I know I'm talking about, possibly the second best wide receiver of all time. But they take these players that everyone else says they're trash. I mean, like they picked up Troy Nicholas, a second-round tight end from the Cardinals. What's going to happen with that?
25 years old.
So I think there's an opportunity for Dorsett because he is now the speed on the team.
Let's talk about the other side of the trade. The win now Los Angeles Rams acquire another big-time piece. They lost Sammy Watkins, didn't re-sign him. Brandin Cooks, at least production-wise, much better wide receiver than Sammy Watkins has been in the NFL.
Certainly.
I think if you're in the hype circles for Sammy Watkins.
To be fair, Brandin Cooks has played with 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
Well, at least he did what he was supposed to do with them, right? Are you telling me that Sammy Watkins with Tyrod Taylor and Jared Goff didn't get the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. But they went this route. They went the Brandin Cooks route. Apparently, they had tried to trade for him a season ago before he was shipped to New England. Reports came out that he's already been working out with Goff. So either this was known or this was brewing for a while. And you combine him with Cooper Kupp, very talented slot receiver, with
Robert
Woods, Gurley out of the backfield, weapons galore for an offensive mind. At a minimum, yes, he loses the Hall of Fame quarterback, but you gain a very competent top 5 offensive mind, and you have, the coverage is not going to circle all to Brandin Cooks. So where are you adjusting him? Because let's spoiler alert here. He's not in our consensus top 10 at the wide receiver position on today's show.
He went from a back end wide receiver 1. I think I have him around 20 now. So
you moved him down.
I would still project Cooks to be the top receiver on his team, but I don't see the level of production being similar to what it was for the Patriots or the Saints.
Okay. All right. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun to watch what Los Angeles can do with all of these pieces, and I think that there is a wide range of thoughts, philosophies about what they're doing and the all-in mentality, but it's kind of the fantasy football mentality. We're on the show all the time. We're talking about, are you a win-now dynasty team? Are you a win-now team? Do you make the next big move to put you over the top? What does it take to get over the top?
And we've mentioned, at least
they're
casually,
listening to us is what I'm saying, Mike.
What I was going to say is I brought up the point of McVay. Is he the first coach in the NFL who grew up in playing Madden?
Right.
In that era. I mean,
he's opening up another pack.
He's got to build that ultimate
He got
team.
Brandin Cooks. He thought he had Odell Beckham.
Yeah.
He got Brandin Cooks.
That would be upsetting.
There was a lot of talk about New England maybe flipping the 2 first-rounders for Odell Beckham Jr.
I would – that at least at the time of this recording, that has not happened, and I give that a very low percentage chance. Like I said, it's not the Patriot way.
It's not the Patriot way, and there's more talk about them using those picks to move up and get a quarterback.
My point was McVay grew up in the fantasy football era. I mean, is
he younger than we are?
It's not just McVay, of course, pulling all these strings, but
I think he's younger than us.
He's getting all the credit right.
He's way younger than us.
Oh yes, we are elder statesmen.
What in the world happened, Mike?
What
are we doing with our lives?
I was giving kids like McVay wedgies.
Wedgies. Okay,
because that's what we did back in my day.
Back in my day, we gave every kid we saw a wedgie.
Wedgies and swirlies.
Yeah. Actually, what I always used to get was I got the noogies and I got the box of red ants. You ever have the box of red ants?
The box of red ants.
Oh gosh, that's when your uncle comes up and pinches the hell out of you. Just over and over, all like little teeny pinches all over.
Oh, did it go with the purple nurple?
It's in the same tier. It's the same tier of punishment. The noogies sucked.
As soon as
and then the box of red ants sucked.
Uncle comes around, you know that the nips are gone.
Get out of town. Go back to where you came from. All right. Hey, before we get into the wide receivers, which we're going to do right now, I do want to thank Pristine Auction for sponsoring today's podcast. Look, you can get a signed. Here's what people got yesterday. Signed, authentic Tyreek Hill jersey, $61. Signed, authentic Davante Adams mini helmet, $71. Odell Beckham Jr. signed 8.5 by 11 photo, $40. Jordan Reed signed 8 by 10. Get this. This is a JSA witness signature. Everything's authentic on Pristine Auction. $17.55 yesterday.
I may or may not have a small bid in on the future superstar for the New England Patriots.
Oh, really?
A very, very small bid.
Philip Dorsett.
But I found him on there.
They sell jerseys with his name on the Patriots?
And you know what? I'm going for it. I'm calling my shot.
Well, see, that's the fun thing about Pristine Auction, though. You can actually bet on players you think will evolve. You could have gotten Kareem Hunt a lot cheaper before the season than in the season.
Yes, you could have.
So, and the nice thing is hundreds of daily auctions, so you can check every day, see if there's a player that you want to snag.
Yep.
PristineAuction.com, Pristine auction.com.
We want to thank SeatGeek for sponsoring the show. SeatGeek is the smartest, easiest way to get tickets to every type of live events, whether you're searching for a last-minute deal, planning a night out, or you need to find the perfect gift. SeatGeek helps you find the best seats at the best prices. They are fully guaranteed. I have the SeatGeek app, Andy has the SeatGeek app. We have used it. It's the easiest way to buy tickets because just a few taps. Just a few taps.
2 taps.
Whenever I'm looking for tickets for a Cardinal game, first thing I go to, SeatGeek. Makes it easy. They're designed to make it, like I said, this is the easiest ticket buying experience you'll ever have. Saves you time and money. They search multiple ticket sites to compare prices, find amazing deals, get the most bang for your buck. They're always looking out for your budget, always helping you have a good time over at SeatGeek. And best of all, our listeners can get $20 off their first SeatGeek purchase. Just download the SeatGeek app, enter the promo code FOOTBALLERS, that is FOOTBALLERS, for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase.
All right, let's get into the wideouts.
Wide receivers.
All right, let's circle back. Speaking of live events, I mean, yeah, I know. Jay Grizz wanted me to bring something up. I don't know if we've brought it up yet, Mike, but there's going to be a few fantasy footballers live events this year.
Quattro.
That would be 4, at least 4. Do we want to tell
at least 4?
Do we want to tell people?
Or announcing the cities?
Do we want to tell people where we're coming?
I do.
I want to get the hype train going.
Oh, look out!
Watch out! All right, let's hype this up. You know, people always said that when we use the hype train drop that it sounds scary, and I never understood. Then I bought a new car that actually had like a sound system in it. I got freaked out, man.
I'll tell you what, we do not insure people's underpants.
No.
You soil them, that's your problem.
Yeah. Okay.
Not my problem.
No, not my problem. All right, we're going to have a live show in Phoenix, Arizona.
Of course. Home base.
Yeah, home base. We're going to do a live show in Minnesota.
Yeah.
This year in Minnesota.
I'm going to see my team.
It's going to be in June.
Me and cousins are hanging out. We're going to play some golf.
Some of those things will happen. The live show, most likely.
Some of those.
We're going to be in Dallas this year.
Yeah.
We're going to go visit our Dallas Foot Clan members, and then we're going to be in Philadelphia. We're going to head out east.
Celebrate some Super Bowl victories.
Yeah.
Victories. I've just projected them to win again, apparently.
Yes, victories. Hey, they could do it.
Certainly.
Carson wants one. Carson Wentz wants one. All right, so that's big news, though. We're gonna get out on the road a little bit, and we had so much fun doing the live show last year out here in Phoenix. The Foot Clan's amazing, and we're gonna go to you in a few cities this year.
Stay tuned for more information.
Fair. All right, number 1 on our consensus top 10 wide receiver rankings. Maybe you've never heard of him. Maybe you have. Antonio Brown, the consensus number one on all of our individual early rankings right now. I don't need to give you the resume.
No, but I'm going to anyways.
Go ahead, Mike.
Because it's just so fun to talk about the greatness of Antonio Brown. Since 2013, here are his fantasy finishes. 6, 1, 1, 3, he missed a game, and 2 last year. He missed 2 games. Since 2013, when Antonio Brown took over the role that he has the most receptions in the league, 582. Second place over that time span, Demaryius Thomas, 481. Over 100 more receptions. He has the most touchdowns in that time span, more than Dez Bryant, who's second, and the most yards, 7,848. Almost 1,000 yards more than second place, who was Julio Jones in that time span. Antonio Brown.
He's the number 1.
Antonio Brown is...
He's been doing it since Sean McVay was in diapers. Let's put it that way.
Antonio Brown is going to go down. Do you think he'll go down as the number 2? Can he get there?
Of all time?
Yeah. I'm just assuming he can't pass Jerry Rice because nobody can possibly do that.
Could he get there? Yeah, he could get there. If he has some of those statistical accolades on the back end of his career, he could get there. He's great.
But he's number 1.
He's number 1. Has his quarterback changed? No.
No, and his quarterback, things have changed for Ben Roethlisberger from mid-season saying, I don't know if I have it, I'm going to retire to, Todd Haley's gone.
3 more years.
I hate that Todd Haley guy, so I'm going to play 3 more years.
He's going to have more freedom at the line, which means more targets towards Antonio Brown, if that's even possible. And no, there's no stopping Antonio Brown right now. Look, Antonio Brown is to the wide receiver position what Lev Bell is to the running back position. And
it's not fair that they're on
by
the same
comparison,
team.
DeAndre Hopkins is what Gurley is. He came out last year, bounce back year, just like Todd Gurley. We have Hopkins at number 2. Mike and I both have him at number 2. Jason has him at 3. And last year, all he did was go out, catch 96 passes for 1,378 yards, 13 touchdowns on 175 targets with a variety of quarterback options. basically saying, I don't care to whomever was brought in and to all the doubters.
As long as it's not Osweiler.
And that is really my rule in life. Would you like, if some random person walks up to me and says, hey, do you want me to do your taxes? I say, as long as it's not Osweiler. It doesn't matter what the question is. Can I watch your kids for you? As long as it's not
Brock.
Osweiler. Not nice. Do I get to make fun of him a little bit more because he's from out here?
Look, watching him play football was not nice.
Right. He could be an absolute. I mean, we already know he's good at.
I've heard
all things height related.
I've heard he's not a gentleman.
Really?
No, I'm just trying to make you feel better.
All right. Let's not talk about Brock. Let's talk about DeAndre Hopkins.
So DeAndre Hopkins last year with Deshaun Watson, 4 of the 7 games he had 11+ targets. The thing that I am hopeful for, that's a weird thing to say with DeAndre Hopkins, but his catch percentage with Deshaun Watson was over 63% on the season. When you factor in all the other guys who were throwing him the ball, he finished at 55 for 55. Oh, do we got that? 55! Oh! Yes!
I need that on a quicker trigger button because we only think about it if someone randomly brings up the number.
It's instinctual for me.
Woo! I got it there quick.
But so higher catch percentage with Deshaun Watson. It's the target share. Massive. 174 targets. That was the 33% target share. More than A.J. Green came in second at 28%. So as long as they keep feeding Hopkins, which we have seen, you go back to 3 years when he had the breakout campaign with Brian Hoyer, it was all target share. So as long as that continues, Hopkins will be a top 3 guy.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where Hopkins is the type of receiver you just need to force feed the targets to. He's got some of the best hands in football, body positioning, offensive passing interference capabilities.
I was gonna say, that's the best push off in the business.
But 11.6 targets a game is what it comes down to. If you're going to get now, does this defense take a step forward? Does Deshaun Watson show that he's able to do what he did consistently? Consistency? Well, I can't say words. Consistently.
Consistently?
Consistently. That's what I was getting at. Jason's not here. I got to fill in. That's the question mark with him. But when you talk about the other players in our consensus list, the question that comes to mind is they have different warts, they have different problems. Odell Beckham Jr. comes in at number 3. He's Jason's number 2. He's my 4 and Mike's 3. And he has question marks above his head. Will Eli Manning be able to
say as of time of recording, he's a New York Giant? I just want to make sure we throw that out there.
Yeah, and I guess it's worth saying we're recording this a little bit early. Brooks is heading out of town. What is it, Cabo San Lucas? Is that the Caribbean, Brooks, for what, a month?
Back to Michigan.
Oh, back to Michigan.
Brooks's skin in the Caribbean would stand no chance.
Oh, my goodness.
Agreed.
Okay. It's like offensive lineman against Aaron Donald. No chance. But Odell Beckham Jr. coming off of the injury, a team that wasn't very good, obviously, with the number 2 pick in the draft, and yet a player that has met or exceeded every expectation you could have for him. In his 3 healthy seasons, he finished 6-5-4.
He really screwed the pooch.
He needed to be 3 last year.
Yeah. I'm pretty disappointed.
You should be. But Beckham Jr., you know what you get in him. If you wanted to make the argument, hey, let's draft him over Hopkins, draft him over Julio, that's fine.
Yeah.
Those are players that I have. I have both those guys ahead of him. But Beckham is still one of the best dynasty wide receiver draft picks that you can make. Dominant. I mean, you're splitting hairs with these players.
Yeah. Yeah, if you do recall, he injured himself in preseason, so he was a bit of a question mark entering last year's draft, but then weeks through 5, wide receiver 6, 19, wide receiver 7, he's fantastic.
1,300 yards, 10-plus touchdowns each of his first 3 seasons. We can move on.
Yes.
So let's move on to Julio Jones. Tried and true.
We're keeping him there.
Tried and true. 149 targets, 1,444 yards, 88 receptions, just 3 touchdowns. And this is the enigma that is Julio Jones, right? He seems to make big plays, right? He puts up the 2nd most receiving yards in the league, and yet he doesn't score. And he's finished 8th in 2014, 2nd in 2015, 6th in 2016, 4th last year. So a top 5 is where you're going to end up with Julio Jones. But I've grown weary of predicting some sort of explosion of touchdowns from Julio Jones. I mean, you compare that season, he was the wide receiver 4, to the season that Hopkins had, and Hopkins had 10 additional receiving touchdowns.
Yeah,
why can Julio not score?
Here's the crazy thing. This is a stat I've brought up, but it's worth repeating. Players with 19 or more red zone targets, there's 20 players. Only 3 of those guys had a catch percentage under 40% on those targets. Adam Thielen, Mike Evans, and Julio Jones. Julio Jones had 14 targets inside the 10.
So they tried.
The leader had 16. That was Jimmy Graham. On those targets, Jimmy Graham turned 16 targets into 8 touchdowns. Julio Jones turned 14 targets, and these targets are coming from Pro Football Reference, into 1 touchdown.
So all of the indictments of Sarkisian,
they tried.
They shouldn't. You should not be mad at them then. If the leader in the category was 16 red zone targets,
10. These are inside the 10.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 10 zone targets, and Julio gets 14. They did what we wanted them to do, and Julio said, "No,
no, man, I'm good."
It's strange.
I only like yards.
I don't understand it. And you brought up Evans too, right? Somebody who's big-bodied, and is this a product of bad targets, of force-feeding targets?
I'm sure it is.
Because these players are great.
Yeah, and you have the other players on the team. Matt Ryan's not a bad red zone quarterback. I mean, you have Mohamed Sanu and Austin Hooper who have fine catch rates in the red zone, but not Julio.
I feel like Julio's targets come after about a 13-second scramble by Ryan, who just eventually lobs it up.
I have no clue.
But we did see the playoff game last year. He couldn't come down with it. A.J. Green and Michael Thomas are tied at number 5 in our consensus rankings. I have A.J. Green at 7. Love A.J. Green. Jason and Mike have him at 6. Last year was a difficult year.
Bad year. As far as A.J. Green terms, but for a guy who finishes 75 receptions, almost 1,100 yards, and 8 touchdowns, somehow it was a bad year. This was the worst catch percentage of his career. He went... These are his past 4 years in terms of catch percentage. 59, 65, 66, down to 52.4. Yards per game, 80, 81, 96, down to 67. And he still finished as the wide receiver 11. Here's the exciting thing about A.J. Green. We put on our forums, there was a very heated discussion about A.J. Green or Tyreek Hill. And while it's decently evenly split. Decently evenly is bad phrasing, but
great phrasing based on my consensus thing going on today.
Those who picked Tyreek Hill are firing the most poisonous venom at A.J. Green that you can imagine. They are furious with the guy that finished at wide receiver 11, over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns, but they are furious. So watch for A.J. Green's ADP to be where it should not be.
That is fair. I look at him now, though, and I feel like I've made excuses for A.J. Green to be deserving of a top 5 tier consideration that maybe I'm not going to give him anymore. And that's why I have him at 7, because you have to go to 2012 and 2013 to get a top 5 finish from him. Yes, there's all the reasons in the world. Okay, I played 13 games, and then I played 10 games.
2 years ago, he was
number 7, though.
He was, right, but what did he play, 10 games?
No, that was a 16-game season.
Oh, I'm trying to...
He played he played 10 games 2 years ago.
That's what I mean.
But he finished 34th.
But in those games, he was absolutely crushing people.
And this is the argument we made last year.
Like I said, 96 yards a game.
I'm not disrespecting A.J. Green. Targeted the 9th highest total in the league. I think there were some mental things going on last year where that team was like a storm cloud was over it, right? Yeah. There was offensive line issues. There were Andy Dalton issues. There was Jalen Ramsey issues. There was all sorts of issues on that team, and he still put up a wide receiver 11. It's not a disrespect thing, but if you ask me about a tier break, I want those first 4 guys we just mentioned. I want them over A.J. Green. I'm not going to, like last year in the draft, I would have looked at it like, give me the better value of Julio or A.J. Green.
Right.
I don't look at it that way this year. And I love A.J. Green, but I didn't like what I saw. The team hasn't been good. You still have Marvin Lewis. He's more of the guaranteed 8 to 12 to me than he is the guaranteed top 5 anymore because he hasn't done it since 2013.
But that upside is there.
Agreed. Let's talk about Michael Thomas, the tie at number 5 here on our rankings. Mike, you have him the lowest.
I do.
You have him at number 9. So let's start with that because he is a perplexing player.
Very much so.
Because did he meet expectations or did he not? He finished at wide receiver 6.
Yeah, these are initial rankings, so 9 is maybe that's a little bit too low. As Michael Thomas improved I want everyone to think back. Think back of last year of Michael Thomas, where I felt like I had to just keep supporting and keep saying, guys, Michael Thomas is having a fine year. But for fantasy purposes, people just were not feeling Michael Thomas.
More receptions, more yards, the same yards per catch.
But his touchdowns, he pulled a Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
He went from 9 to 5.
Right. You don't want to do that.
I planned that joke.
You want to go 5 to 9. Did you plan that joke?
It's still good. It's still good.
You don't want to say that.
I'm a transparent man.
All right.
But
I can
here's
see
the
through
thing.
you.
He had fewer than 8 targets in a game 2 times.
Well, who else are you going to throw to there?
He's
their only guy.
Michael Thomas, this is me venting over last year of having to defend him every single week.
Does he feel like a number 1, though?
I think he is.
Well, there you go.
Because you're also – we talked about –
I do too. I have him at 5.
The touchdowns from going down from 9 to 5, but that touchdown positive regression, whatever the term is that you want to use.
You think they have Dolly Parton up on the pristine auction?
Wait, the actual person?
No.
She's not doing much. She does how? She just comes in and stands in the corner.
Do they ship her in a box? Do you get the JSA certification, or do you get a fake Dolly Parton that pops out? You don't get a fake one at pristine auction.
No.
100% JSA certified Dolly Parton. I'm not sure that's the endorsement they wanted. Yeah, Michael Thomas.
Yeah.
I have him at 5. Obviously, you buy into an offense that's going to score a ton of touchdowns. And last year, we broke down these numbers earlier in the offseason. The proportion of rushing touchdowns to passing touchdowns was strange last year in New Orleans. They were great, but that number's probably not going to happen again.
I would agree.
Which means he might catch more than 5.
It also means 9 is too low for how I feel in my heart about Michael Thomas.
Okay.
Pitter-patter.
Mike Evans. He finished as the wide receiver 17 last year. That is a bust for what you expected of Mike Evans.
Certainly is.
He was number 2 overall in 2016. Now he's durable. He's going to play, and he should be and will be the number 1 target for Jameis Winston. The problem was you got 0 great games for Mike Evans. No monstrous explosions. 71 for 1,000 yards and 5. You look at that, and I think in our minds we say Mike Evans is otherworldly talent. He's better than a Brandin Cooks. Well, the numbers didn't bear it out last year. Only 135 targets. I believe he was in the 170 range the year before. We anticipated a drop in targets. I don't think I thought it would get down to the 130 range when you compare it to a guy like, I don't know, anybody above him in these rankings, 149 targets. That's about where I would have had him, 150.
And do think back to the stat I just gave about 10 zone targets with Thielen, Mike Evans, and Julio Jones, because you see the ping pong ball going back and forth where it was rookie year, 5 targets turned into 4 touchdowns. Then it was 10 targets turned into 2 touchdowns. Then it was 7 targets turned into 5. And then last year, 9 targets in the 10 zone, 1 touchdown out of those targets.
If we had the more you know drop, I would hit it here because this is a good illustration.
By the way, if these trends continue.
Hey! By the way, Mike, give us a more you know drop on your guitar. I want a riff version.
All right.
I want a classic rock more you know.
Okay.
And it would illuminate moments like this, Mike, where I bring to mind the fact that when you talk about projecting players, when we go and we look at players and how you expect them to stay consistent year to year, touchdowns are not what you're wanting to count on. You cannot bank on them. You cannot bank on touchdowns. I don't care who you are. We've seen it affect every player. you have a player like Michael Thomas who has an absolutely fabulous year and loses 4 touchdowns off his total, and the perception
and people hated him.
And the perception is completely off. Now he started slower too, but that's the hard to predict aspect. That's why you look at workload, targets, receptions. What's the consistency in the offense? What's the consistency in the quarterback? These are the things that you can bank on. You're bringing back Jameis Winston. Mike Evans should be good to be a wide receiver 1 again. He wasn't last year. I think he's pretty safe as a wide receiver 1. But do I think he's going to be a number 2 again? No, I don't really think that's going to happen.
He's never had fewer than 1,000 receiving yards on a season in his entire career. Mike Evans is fine.
Okay. Keenan Allen coming in at number 8. Welcome back,
Yeah.
Keenan Allen.
Let's go.
You were going to get a jersey, but then you just tattooed one on your body. Keenan Allen is Mike's number 5 overall. 102 receptions, 1,393 yards, 6 touchdowns, 159 targets, and he started slow.
Yes,
and he ended
very
number 3,
slow.
the wide receiver 3. Still maybe the most disrespected player at the wide receiver position heading into this year?
It's very possible because, in my opinion, Keenan Allen is an elite wide receiver in the NFL. I know he's not the same type. He's not as gifted athletically as Julio Jones or Odell Beckham, but he is an elite wide receiver. But
well, maybe he is getting the respect because right now he's going ahead of A.J. Green and Mike Evans in drafts.
That's fine by me.
Just behind the big boys, Brown, Hopkins, Beckham, Thomas, and Julio.
But speaking of the slow start, weeks 1 through 10, in average points, he was actually the wide receiver 34 in points per game. Weeks 1 through 10.
Goodness gracious.
And then after that, he became the wide receiver 2 in points per game, wide receiver 1 overall when you add up all the points. They just absolutely started to feed him. And what was great about this, his yards per reception jumped back up to closer to his rookie year. If you remember his rookie year, he had 14.7 yards per reception. He was a big play, touchdown type of guy. And then everything turned into he was going to paper cut you to death with 1,000 targets. And so people said, well, it's like he's Jarvis Landry type of a situation, which it's fine for fantasy, but he's not an elite guy. It jumped back up to 13.7 yards per reception last year. I believe more in the second half, Keenan Allen, that the Chargers said, this is going to lead us, and this can lead our offense in a very positive way. So that's the Keenan Allen I'm buying into.
Clearly, if you have him all the way up at number 5, you hope he could spread the production out a little bit more even next year. I don't think you're going to move too far from the paper cuts you to death mindset with Phillip Rivers behind center. I still think that's what works for them. The 102 receptions, it works for fantasy owners too.
Yeah.
6 touchdowns, I can live with that if you're gonna put up 159 targets. Let's talk about number 9. And maybe this is the player that has the biggest opportunity to be in that top 3 consideration, top 5. Davante Adams. Davante Adams is number 9 in our rankings right now, finished at wide receiver 14 last year despite not having Aaron Rodgers for the greater part of the year and despite playing only 14 games. What is the real opportunity here? No Jordy. Has to be the lead dog. Going to see lead dog coverage.
Yes.
But going to be force-fed by the best quarterback in football.
Yeah, Davante Adams took a step. Davante Adams is exactly why, especially for fantasy football players, and I'm looking in the mirror saying this myself. Don't write a wide receiver off after 2 years, because year 2, when he had that opportunity with Jordy Nelson out, he looked bad. It was done. Davante Adams was going to be a bust, and then he has a sensational 3rd and the 4th year. Last year with Rodgers, here's his pace in the 6 games. I apologize, with Rodgers, a pace of 75 receptions, just over 900 yards, and 13 touchdowns. Here's the other part of that. He didn't play a full season with Rodgers, but he still finished 74 receptions, 885 yards, and 10 touchdowns. So he finished nearly identical to the pace he was putting up with Rodgers, except he was doing that with Brett Hundley. So
yeah, but this is the curse retail of touchdown dependency.
I was going to say
never broke 1,000 yards, never broken 75 total receptions.
But if anyone is considered an exception to the rule of touchdowns, it's Green Bay's number one wide receiver, because Aaron Rodgers is a lock
Makes it happen
for
with him.
30-plus touchdowns, where most quarterbacks, if they break 30, you're very happy about it.
That's the argument that gets me with Adams every time. Every time I want to doubt him, every time I want to move him down a tier, somebody walks along, and his name is Mike, and he will say, well, Rodgers is going to throw for 35 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Break them up. Show me where they go. And I can't do it without giving double digits to Davante Adams.
Yes.
I can't do it without giving like 15 to Davante Adams.
Because at this point,
15 to him and 15 to Graham. I mean, you're right. And then if you do have the consistency, look, he's not a heavy yardage guy. He's not a monstrous play guy. He's somebody that is good after the catch. You're going to get him involved in some of those Demaryius Thomas screen route type of situations. And he has a nose for the end zone 2 straight years, 12 touchdowns, now 10 touchdowns. So, if you're going to go running back early, Davante Adams, you could do a lot worse.
Yeah, I'd be happy with him as my wide receiver 1 if I have one of those elite running backs. Absolutely.
All right, rounding out our top 10. There's a certain validation that comes with this ranking. Albeit I have him at 13 and you guys have him at 10. Adam Thielen last year, 1,200 yards, 4 touchdowns, 91 receptions, 143 targets, finished the wide receiver 10. But there's a certain validation that comes with a season like that, because we always tell fantasy owners, like, there's an eyeball aspect to what you're doing.
Yes.
And when we get into the preseason, my eyeballs are telling me more than the stat lines are telling me in the preseason. And what I see in practice film and what I see in preseason games from the player. Now, with Thielen, it went back to the year before. Before the big breakout last year, you saw him flash at the end of the year, and there was something that you just said, wow, sticky hands, great separation.
Just gets open.
Extra special skills when the play starts to break down. There are players that when they're targeted, you're like, and Jordy used to be like this too. It's like, where is everybody? There's nobody around them.
Right.
Like, how do they disappear? And Adam Thielen's like that. So we've got him at number 10. Last year, a monster season. And this year, it's rare that you would have a team that was as good as Minnesota and a player as good as Thielen, and all of a sudden you're rolling out a new quarterback.
A better quarterback.
A better quarterback.
Yes,
That's true.
Quarterback.
That's a fact. And so then it's, is the chemistry going to be there? You imagine they're going to make it work.
Speaking of rare, is when you come up with just an absolute doozy of a stat about targets in the 10 zone, and you get to use it 3 times.
3 times!
3 times in one show, because flashback to a couple seconds ago when I talked about Evans, Thielen, and Julio Jones had the terrible catch percentage on 10 zone targets. So with Adam Thielen, do we have just a full-on Julio Jones type of a situation? Because he had 4 touchdowns. You go back to 2016, he had 5, and he was really a full-time guy for about 75% of the season. Still only managed 5 touchdowns. Cousins and Keenum, I think Cousins is a better quarterback and was dealing with an inferior wide receiver crew compared to Minnesota. But last year's red zone stats are very similar for Kirk Cousins and for Case Keenum in terms of accuracy. So unless that bumps up or something happens with Adam Thielen, do you expect a touchdown bump up?
Well, and I'm sitting here thinking about that, because do I want to believe that a player like Thielen, who's 6'3", who looks the part of a red zone weapon, is not going to produce down there? And the reality is if we think the strengths are about separation and we think the strengths are about when the play breaks down, for some reason, look, they lean on Diggs down. Diggs is 6 foot, but he's the guy who's gone up. They throw those fades to Diggs.
And Diggs gets open immediately. I mean, Diggs is an excellent separator. Stephon Diggs had I'm seeing it, 100% catch rate inside the red zone.
That's almost as good as you can get.
Almost.
But look, 8 touchdowns last year.
Right.
There's that 100% catch rate. So if I had to bank on, 7 each?
That's
okay.
insane, man.
I know.
I'm
100% catch rate?
That.
Throw it to him.
Seriously.
Genius. No, there is the possibility that Kirk Cousins and Thielen.
Okay, 85%.
Okay,
I had an error in there.
There's the possibility that, Cousins owns in on one or two guys down in the red zone, and Thielen's one of them. So I'm not going to rule out a 10-touchdown season from him if this offense is going to be prolific. That being said, you don't need it. 91 receptions, 1,200 yards. We got him at number 10 for a reason. That's a wide receiver 1.
Yep.
And I still think that there's a bit of a wincing that happens when you roll Adam Thielen into that wide receiver run spot, but you shouldn't. You should be pretty content, I think.
Yeah, this is just that emotional factor of fantasy football. A wide receiver who was undrafted broke out at an elderly age for a wide receiver breakout, but here we are, and Adam Thielen's a top 10 wide receiver.
All right, we'll have the wide receiver 11 through 20 rankings on our next episode of the podcast. Be sure to check out jointhefoot.com if you want a bonus episode each and every week. And let's talk some mailbag.
Mailbag.
Mailbag! Yeah. Ooh. So nice, so nice. If you have a question, why don't you send it to us? Go to the website.
Why?
Why not? Thefantasyfootballers.com.
Questions.
Click the submit a question button, or you can dial our voicemail hotline. We make it oh so convenient. 302-464-TFFB. Kicking it off in this mailbag with a voicemail question.
Hey, ballers. It's Robert from Baltimore, Maryland. Love the show, but I have an issue drafting first-round busts. 2 years ago, I drafted Todd Gurley. Last year, I drafted Jay Ajayi. Help me out, guys. Which first-round guy is going to bust this year? Thanks.
Woo. Which first-round guy is going to bust? What I was going to recommend is you just concede the pick. Just skip it. Just don't even – no? Not good advice, Brooks? No?
It's not the best.
Man, if you have a projected first-round bust, that's a tough question, Mike.
Yeah, the worst thing about first-round bust calls is they sound idiotic forever. I mean,
yeah, if I had to pick one.
I mean, like all the way through, halfway through the fantasy football season,
yes,
you still will feel bad about your pick. It could end up right, but the flip side of this, we know a few guys in the first round will bust. It's what happens, but generally speaking.
So you're betting your house, Mike.
Yes.
On Gurley, Bell, Zeke, Brown, Hopkins, Kamara, David Johnson, Hunt, Melvin Gordon, Odell Beckham Jr. You're betting your house that one of those guys does not deliver, and you're betting on who? Because I'm going to take Hunt, not because I don't like him, but because maybe he goes Jeremy Hill, and maybe Andy Reid gives him the Andy Reid treatment a little too often. But I could see Hopkins or Kamara being in the discussion too.
Yeah, I don't want to say what I have to say.
David Johnson?
David Johnson. Simply because of a Todd Gurley.
You don't want to sing it with sadness?
David Johnson. Just because of offense. He talked about he drafted Todd Gurley 2 years ago, and that offense stunk.
Not good. Not good. All right, here we go. Here's a question from Cody in Illinois. Bonjour, ballers.
Bonjour.
I have Brandin Cooks on my keeper team, and I would like to know what you think of him on the Rams compared to my other options. So he gets to keep two of these three: Cooks, Melvin Gordon, or Jordan Howard.
Ooh, it's a half-point 12 team.
Give me both running backs.
I would take the running backs.
Yeah.
Melvin Gordon for
Done.
sure. And I just talked about how much I love Jordan Howard.
If it makes you feel any better, I would have taken both running backs even if Brandin Cooks was going back to New England.
Really?
Yes.
If Cooks was in New England, I would be fine going Gordon Cooks. But he's not.
Okay.
And I would take the running backs.
Travis in Dighton, Massachusetts. Who do you think will be next year's McKinnon? Someone who, as of right now, has a middle-of-the-road value. Okay, he's defining it. Middle-of-the-road value. But by next year could be crazy high. First person to come to mind is Tevin Coleman. Is there somebody that you think is in that middle-of-the-road value that could McKinnon? Now, McKinnon, of course, only because Dalvin Cook got hurt.
Well, he McKinnoned because it was a contract year.
Well, both of those things, though.
But that's why he's going with Tevin Coleman. This is Tevin Coleman's contract year. I don't see a world where Atlanta, coming off of paying Devonta Freeman all that cash.
Quiche.
Yes, there's a lot of quiche. You can't invest all of that into the running back position. So I find it highly doubtful they re-sign Tevin Coleman, and he becomes the absolute hot guy when it comes to running back free agents. And my money would be on Tevin Coleman with you.
You think Jay could have a surprisingly good year?
He could, but the way
you're not willing to predict it.
No, I'm not willing to predict it because of how I saw them using running backs.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, this question comes in from Bennett in Milwaukee. I know you guys support waiting on quarterback and tight end, but in a 16-team league, are there still enough options in a 16-teamer? Also, any other draft strategies, for example, taking more volatile players? Hoping to win a #FootClan title for the second year in a row. Congratulations, Bennett.
I'll say for the quarterback and tight end, streaming can be harder. That's know your league. I still fully support going late. In fact, even more so, because you want to have that depth in a 16-man league. And while other people are trying to soak up these quarterbacks, you can be actually getting quality depth of guys you will be able to play. However, I'm probably going to draft my platoon of quarterbacks in this league. You may look at them as lower end starters right now, but if you have those three guys, or at least two, but maybe even three, that you can just play the matchups between them.
Mahomes and Rivers.
Sure.
Right?
Perfect.
Something like that.
Absolutely. That would be fantastic.
I would also add that anytime people bring up the kind of conditions by which we might change the waiting on quarterback or tight end rule, you have to recognize that when you expand the team number in your league, you are relatively expanding the need for great running backs just as much. So you are still, it's all proportional. And yes, there is a limit of total players. And like Mike said, maybe he drafts that platoon a little closer together. But I'm with you. I wait on him. All right, Francis in Fargo, North Dakota rounds out our mailbag. I currently have Delaney Walker as my only tight end on the roster and have 2 picks in the first round of our draft at 110 and 111. I am thinking of going tight end with one of those picks. My question is this. Of the following, would any of them be worth the pick? Trey Burton, O.J. Howard, and then he has what?
Hayden
Hurst and Dallas Goedert?
Yeah. Certainly. And here's the thing. Worth that high of a pick? Probably not. If you're going to grab any one of these guys, I would try to unload. If you have a late second for Trey Burton,
yes,
I would do that immediately.
Yes.
And
it's very hard to answer this without seeing the rest of what's kind of on the table, but I kind of agree with you.
So it's I would be targeting Trey Burton. O.J. Howard is stuck in tight end purgatory with Cameron Brate being re-signed to that team. So I would go with the guy who's
I'll be honest with you, though. Yeah, that's what I figured. Jay Grizz would spend a first on Burton.
Trey Burton, or
Trey Boo Boo himself.
Jay Grizz would go 101.
101, Trey. Yeah. That's his favorite player. He is eyeballing me right now, and I don't like it.
I feel like he's eyeballing me.
Yeah, that's the trouble with Bears. All right, that is it for today's episode.
See everything.
Jason will be hopefully back with us on our next episode. In the meantime, check out draft.com/ballers. Join us for some great best ball leagues. No place better to play than draft.com/ballers, and we'll catch you soon.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.